Welcome back to Notes and Things, a podcast about ideas worth pausing for. I'm your host, Eric Verdine. Evolution doesn't have an agenda. It doesn't know what the right answer is supposed to look like. It tries millions, billions, really an infinite number of ways until something works, often in a way nobody expected. Today's guest is Jacob Schrum, an AI researcher and computer scientist at Southwestern University who spent his career getting machines to mimic this process. He's doing it with Ms. Pac-Man, first-person shooters, Minecraft flying machines, and rockets. If there's a fitness function and enough compute, an evolutionary algorithm will find something you didn't expect. But this conversation isn't just about algorithms. It's about learning, what it actually means, what's at stake when it gets too easy, and why Jacob jokingly worries we might be the last generation who knows how to do anything. Let's jump in. All right, Jacob, thank you so much for joining me. I know we were connected via Cody Crosby. I'm really grateful for him to connect us. You guys worked on a really neat rocket evolutionary algorithm project together with students, which was super, super, super fun. I'm sure we're going to get into that. One of the questions I love asking folks who are specialists in AI and who have had deep experience with it, what is the first time, if you can think back, on when AI surprised you?
Wow. Okay. So AI surprising me in the first time it did it. Okay. Um, was it in grad school or was it before that? I think what AI is very confusing because it's a moving target that's changed over time. So like what we consider AI now is different than, what people thought AI was when I was a kid, when I was in undergraduate and graduate school. Um, and then there's some things which are definitely AI that people don't even think of as AI anymore because they're so normalized. That's just my way of hedging and saying that it's very hard to answer the question. But I can't tell you the first time. I mean, some AI of some form or another surprises me all the time, uh, because even though that's like my goal is to make it do something that's surprising, um, like it's not always easy to make it do that. And so every time you find a novel result, which mainly makes me think about graduate school, just struggling to get it to do something, which like even though I'm trying to get it to do it, like whether it's like to learn how to play Miss Pac-Man, which is something my dissertation was related to, or to defeat other human players convincingly in like a first-person shooter game, which is another thing from graduate school. Um, like as an AI researcher, you have sort of an intuition that a certain level of performance should be possible, but usually it's the specific way that it pulls it off that's surprising. That really, whenever it happens, makes for a good result that is fun to share. Is like that's the whole point. Is that it isn't just me telling the computer what to do; it's the computer outsmarting me and doing something that I wouldn't have thought to tell it to do, but that actually, in retrospect, that turns out to be the better solution. And I mean, there's lots of examples of that in evolutionary computation. Um, and, there's plenty of examples of that now with generative AI, with image generation, with text generation. And I, got to see some early versions of stuff from OpenAI that at the time thought, oh, this is really, really cool. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, surprises all over the place, but it's hard to like pin down a specific thing.
I'm sure that makes it super interesting in general. Is that it's an adventure of discovery and exploration. So I saw about the background of the video games, applying a lot of your expertise of video games. I got super pumped about that. I'm a huge video game fan, but it's been on my goals over the course of the past years to play more video games. I have not succeeded at that. But it's very challenging to do it now. But can you kind of go into what you're doing with Miss Pac-Man? Where are you doing those first-person shooters, and what maybe surprised you during those experiments?
Yeah, I mean, first I'll just say really briefly that the more I work in games, it seems like the less I play them,
I know.
because uh, at one point I wanted to design games, and then I got sort of pushed more towards the graduate school route, and I thought, well, have to do something more, serious, quote unquote. But that was when the of games research and AI in games research was beginning to become more respected. and to come of age. And so it was really nice that I got to do both, to do stuff with games and also with AI. But the thing about researchers is that we can go down little weird rabbit holes on whatever goofy thing fascinates us. Even, for older games. And so, I mean, like I said, I mentioned Miss Pac-Man. I mean, that's a ancient game. And I think initially I was just trying to think about complex agent behavior. Like, how do you get agents to exhibit complex behavior? And the question of what is an agent? It's something that's performing tasks in a certain environment. And of course, everyone talks about agentic AI these days. That's definitely an agent, but not what I was really focusing on in graduate school. I was thinking about more like agents in virtual worlds, which pretty much means video games. It's sort of you can have other situations where you'd have a virtual agent or in a sort of 3D or 2D spatial virtual world, and obviously robots are agents to some extent. But I was mainly focused on video game type tasks. But even in these virtual worlds, you can have complex behaviors. Certainly programmers who make video games will program really complex behaviors in agents. But we somehow view it as cheating if a human is like authoring all the details, like saying, "Oh yeah, in this case go left, in this case go right, and this have this large script." Like I just want to have kind of a black box that somehow figures out on its own do these cool things. And in Miss Pac-Man, the tricky thing is how do you know when it's safe to pursue the ghost versus run away from them? I mean, that's vision of like kind of a predator prey behavior, and that happens all the time in nature. This predator prey dynamics. And there's lots of simulated worlds that talk about like predator prey grid worlds, but having it as a game is like a step up. And the intuition was that you'd want to have modules controlling each of those behaviors. And to some extent, when you explicitly divide that out, that can work. When you say, okay, here's what you do when they're like the ghosts are threatening you, and here's what you do when the ghosts are vulnerable. And then from there, you learn the rest. Use evolutionary computation or maybe reinforcement learning. You learn the rest based on that. But I, as a human, provide the task division. But if you let whatever natural learning process, in my case, it was neuroevolution, um, discover its own task division, it surprises you because it turns out that the more salient distinction is kind of like when are you in a like highly threatened like situation? Like when do you need to like get out of a corner versus when are you relatively safe, regardless of their predators or prey? And there's also sort of an issue of luring the ghosts because I think when most humans play Pac-Man, we care more about just surviving. But the really good players want to maximize score. And the way you maximize score is make sure that when you eat that power pill, you eat all the ghosts because there's a multiplier that gets you higher score for eating all four versus just, ignoring them. And so to make that happen, though, you have to kind of lure them before you get the power pill because there's a limited time, right? And so it turned out that like luring was like was used a very small time, but that I guess required a lot of neural resources from the model that was learning to do it. Um, and that was back in before 2014, so ancient history now. AI is gone. Places. I've done so many different things since then. Like I mentioned, working in first-person shooters, but the one I mainly did work in was Unreal Tournament 2004. Over 2 decades old now. And even a lot of my modern research procedural content generation, but I'm looking back at older games like Mario and Mega Man to try to apply these techniques that I'm looking at. Trying to look at the most modern AI techniques like diffusion models, but apply their games, but somewhat because that's where my comfort level is. Some to some extent because that's where the data is available. People that make brand new fancy games don't just give you all of their data. And there's, commercial issues. And even with the old data, I mean, you can get away with doing stuff with Mario and Mega Man. You hear stories about Nintendo being litigious and you kind of worry like, are they going to let me do this? It's like, well, they have the research community. As long as I don't try to commercialize it, it should be fine. So
Right, absolutely. When you were talking about Miss Pac-Man and doing predator versus prey and going towards the ghost and things, it reminds me of the book Ready Player One. Did you read that?
I've not read it. I mean, obviously it was made into a movie and I know the pop culture awareness of it is there. But
you gotta read it. You gotta read it. I was telling people that when I watched it in the theater, I was so upset. I don't usually get upset at movies, but I go, this is a sham compared to the book. And the reason being is because the book focuses more on the 80s and 90s, whereas the movie brings it kind of a generation further up. So there's a lot of scenes of the character playing old arcade games, and it makes it just a super fun thing. So in terms of when you're talking about things like evolutionary algorithms, for folks who are unfamiliar with that, what exactly are those, and how do you apply it to these types of problems?
Yeah, I love talking about this because it's both a cool computational problem technique, but also a way of getting insight into a topic that a lot of people just struggle with, right? Because our society has massive confusion and misunderstanding around the concept of evolution. Um, and even though you can observe it in nature, but you can also observe it in a computer. And so, what is the concept? The concept is I want to solve a problem. And evolution fundamentally happens at the level of populations. So if I want to solve a problem, I don't generate one solution. I generate lots of solutions, a population of solutions. Now I call them solutions, but that doesn't mean that they like solve the problem. They're more candidate solutions. They are a population of attempts at solving a problem. And in order for this method to work, you kind of have to have some way of grading the performance, of measuring, how good you are on some sort of scale. If the scale is just yes or no, that's going to do terrible. You need some kind of like smooth landscape. We call it a fitness function. You have taking an agent, a candidate solution, measuring its performance and getting some number. Let's say it's a number from 0 to 100, and 100's the best. And if you generate a totally random population of candidate solutions, and the problem's fairly hard, you assume that in that initial population, a lot of them have low fitness scores, like around 1, 2, 5. But the point is that there's going to be variation, and so you can have a totally random start. But as long as there's variation and there's a way to measure performance, you can tell good versus bad, then you can make progress because what you do is you see who's better. And it's a computer, so you can manipulate all the numbers that define these solutions. I was talking about neuroevolution earlier. In that situation, the solutions are defined by neural networks, or specifically artificial neural networks. Neural networks underlie pretty much all modern major advances in AI these days. And of course, large language models are just really, really big neural networks to some extent. But if you can have a population of neural networks, which is usually easier if they're smaller neural networks, not these large language models. There are exceptions, but so you have a population of them, and you take the ones that are a little bit better than the others, and you use them to create new ones. And so, in the evolutionary metaphor, this is having offspring. The ones from the initial population are the parents. They have children. Um, Now, you can do asexual reproduction where you just make a direct clone of one and then you sort of tweak its numbers a little bit. So that's called a mutation. So you're mutating the genome. There's a
Yes.
bunch of everything's in air
Well,
quotes for this.
I'm
Uh,
smiling. It's so fun because I didn't even think about the different types of reproductive models there are in nature, and
right.
you can mimic these however you want in the computer. That's really neat.
Well, and I'll tell you about artificial life in a second. But first, evolutionary computation. So we take these agents, we mutate their genome, and if you have one parent, it's sexual reproduction. You can also take two parents, combine them, use crossover to make one offspring from two parents. Although you could also have 3 or 4 parents. I mean, there's nothing stopping you in a computer from doing whatever kind of crazy stuff you want. But you have some way of generating the next population. And then um, if you took the best of the previous population and made a bunch of children, then you're more statistically likely in the next population to have higher overall average fitness and then hopefully gradually higher overall maximum fitness. And you keep doing this and you get better and better until you hopefully solve the task. Now, there's a whole variety of techniques around using this concept to solve harder and harder problems. And, sometimes it doesn't work out as easily as this, story I've just told, which is why it's a active research area. But in general, it's surprisingly robust and powerful, and also easy to apply because you don't really have to know much of anything about the domain you're applying it to. You just have to have a way of measuring performance, a way of representing a solution, and enough time and computation to try lots of different possibilities.
Hmm. Yeah, this is such a fascinating way to approach these problems, having the computer do it. And for the audience out there, these are solving very real world problems. So a couple of the things I've referenced before is like the NASA antenna had a radio
Mhm.
antenna, I believe that it was.
Yeah, that was genetic programming specifically. Yeah.
Yep, and then they had alpha protein, right? Is doing
Yes.
similar things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think. I'm trying to remember what the evolutionary component in that is, because there's a lot of hybrid systems, and like sometimes the publicity around it is more about it's a neural network or whatever. But yeah, there's. I will definitely say that evolutionary algorithms have been played a key part in a lot of important discoveries, and they're very useful tools in various
It's
domains. So.
super neat. I know Airbus also partnered with, I think, CAD or Autodesk, and they designed a um, plane partition. And my favorite part, and this is probably normal for you, but as a layperson, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so cool, is that the engineers and the designers would say, we would never think of that.
Yes, that's what I
We,
was talking about evolution surprising you, and like it just happens all the time, um, because it's just looking at these numbers. It's not biased by whatever the normal way to do it is or what the supposedly best way to do it is. And of course, sometimes there's actually a whole paper which has like a bazillion authors on it. Something like the surprising ways that evolution, the ways that evolution surprises you and whatever. Something it's like this how it goes off the script and does surprising things. And it was just a bunch of people contributing on this paper about all the weird things they'd seen over the years with evolution, which didn't always lead to um, like positive results. Were very insightful, like things like evolution finding really clever ways to cheat. Sometimes you wanted to solve some sort of task, and you have a video game or a simulator that's like simulating like a 3D robot and a or like rocket or some other kind of agent, and it turns out that the way to maximize fitness is to do something that's like physically impossible, or that it's not what you actually wanted it to do, but it like does some weird thing that just breaks the model. It's like, oh, okay, I mean, you're very clever for finding that. Now I have to like fix, but like when you're trying to like get performance, that's viewed as a bug. And so a lot of that stuff didn't get to be published until this paper where everyone's like saying, "Oh yeah, no, we see it all the time."
yes. So how hard is it to build these I mean, I don't know if a game would be the proper term, but these programs where you say, okay, I have a chair and I want to make the best type of chair with this type of material that I have. And I'm going to, I guess you have to start writing, well, what's the physics behind the chair and the ways in which someone sits in it and what's the weight, and you put them in the environment and whatever gravity and everything like this. The variables start to become exponential.
Yeah.
So is
And
it
so
challenging for companies, organizations, or people to develop these types of programs or systems on their own, and try to find a novel solution to something?
yeah, there's like a lot of connections around that question. So um like I don't typically design what I would call a simulator, or like something that has complex physics simulation, things like that. Technically, that's not an AI algorithm. That's not an evolutionary computation algorithm, but it's something that we need in order to apply some of these methods. And so the reason that I got excited in doing that rocket research with Cody was I was just talking with him at one of these rocket launches, and he mentioned that, oh, yeah, my students use this software called Open Rocket to simulate these rockets. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, you already have software that just spits out a number? Like it does a simulation for you?
Yes.
Awesome. I'll come in, I can apply some evolutionary algorithm, and then I'll just send the rocket design to this program that already exists, and I get a number out of it. I get several numbers. I get, measuring its performance in various ways. And then I can use that as feedback to the evolutionary algorithm. So, like, the core evolutionary algorithm can often be very simple. Now, of course, like I said, it's an active research area. People are making them more and more sophisticated. But usually the major restriction in applying these algorithms is the time cost for simulation or or evaluation. So I have a student in the lab right now who is trying to evolve complex machines in Minecraft. And we actually had, so not this student, but me and some previous students a couple of years ago used evolutionary algorithms to evolve flying machines. Now,
Like
as
Da
you may
Vinci
know,
flying machines style?
say what?
Like Da Vinci flying machines?
No, if only. No, so the way that there's plenty of tutorials online for this, but in Minecraft with pistons, you can make flying
Oh, okay.
redstone and pistons. You can make flying machines, and
You
so
got it. Okay, got it.
yeah, and so yeah, you just you put some blocks in the right spot, and then it creates like a perpetual motion machine that moves off in one direction. Um, but configuring the blocks the right way is hard. And there was actually a paper that inspired me that like was basically saying, hey, we have this cool, like, they're the ones who made this cool interface for placing blocks in Minecraft, but their preliminary tests showed, but we can't create flying machines. And I was like, oh, well, let me try. And then I had some students work on it. We applied variations of evolutionary algorithms called quality diversity algorithms, which is the same thing that we did with the rocket research with Cody. And then we eventually evolved some basic flying machines. And that was a successful paper that was presented at a conference. The student working on it now is trying to go a bit further and evolve more complex things. But the original reason I was talking about that is that the major bottleneck there is that you have to evaluate these things for a long time, and they're actually they're like spawned on the Minecraft server, and you have to like wait a little while to see what it does. And so this is real world time that adds up. And so if you want to like try lots and lots of designs, like sometimes you'll have a simulator where it's possible to like crank up the clock, like, and so you can simulate things at a faster speed. But I don't have full control over the Minecraft code. Like I'm just like, the Minecraft server is like something I don't have control over. And so I'm just launching stuff in there. The game is running at whatever speed it's running at. The best I can do to like speed things up a little bit is parallel evaluation. And this is a very common trick in evolutionary computation because usually if I want to know how something performs, that's independent from how other things are performing. So if I can evaluate multiple solutions in parallel, that'll speed things up. And so I don't just spawn one shape into the world. I spawn a bunch of them, and then it's multi-threaded in a way where I observe all of them simultaneously and try to measure the performance. But the server can only handle so much of that at a time, and I have to make sure I place them in the right way such they don't interfere with each other. And so there's like a lot of extra caveats in making that work. But yeah, almost any interesting problem you want to solve, evaluation is the challenge. And then back to your original question about simulating physics or having the perfect chair or whatever. And you mentioned like a problem with like aircraft design, I believe. Very often companies that are designing these things, they already have pretty complex simulators or they have sophisticated software already that they're using for design purposes because their engineers, even when a human comes up with a design, like a CAD design, they have to plug it into some sort of software to evaluate it, to test it. And that's kind of what we did with Open Rocket is just, just treating that as the software evaluator for the evolutionary algorithm. But for any company that's already focused on designing a certain type of thing like aircraft, they're going to have software that does that already. And if you just plug in evolution and you have enough compute and time, you can explore a lot of possibilities.
So that's the big thing is the compute. For the layperson to do it, it's what's your server access to the cloud that can then run these simulations, and then every time it's running something or it's processing, you have to pay for it because it's not free. Do you think that it's going to get closer to where smaller teams that are outside big organizations or institutions would be able to do these types of things? Make their own simulation with natural language and do all of that?
I mean, Google Cloud and Amazon web services. I mean, these all like are much more affordable and usable now than they ever were before. And also I'm talking about massive compute and like the cost of Minecraft, but I uh, am often focusing on things I can do, on a single machine. Or, I mean, you can make really complex systems, but like it's there's to do this well at scale requires not just like artificial intelligence knowledge, but also software engineering knowledge. Um, and I think you're right that with AI coding, that becomes more accessible to people than ever before. And it's something that honestly I should probably explore more, because there have definitely been times when I'm working on something and I'm bound by compute, and I think like, man, like it takes forever to run this on one machine. Wonder if I could like come up with some sort of clever solution that will distribute this across the cluster of machines in the lab here. Uh, but I'm at a fairly small university. We don't have like we have obviously an IT department, but they're not. I'm like thinking about what it was like being a graduate student at University of Texas, where it was totally different. So like the University of Texas, they had this Condor cluster and a whole team of people who were in charge of servicing it. And if anything went wrong with that, they would get on it right away. And so back there, like I could say, oh yeah, I'm gonna submit my jobs and it's going to distribute it across all these machines and like aggregate all the results and I can get it back. And so it was very easy to do that in that environment.
Yeah,
And
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, well, basically, I don't have that environment now. And like in theory, there's things I could do to get access to that. Like I said, I could use the cloud. I could. There's like the JJ Pickle Research Campus at the Texas Advanced Computing Center, where like you can buy accounts. But that requires me to like write my code in a slightly different way to like take advantage of all that. And it's just like, let me just like play with what I have. And that's another nice thing about working with um, games like Mario and Mega Man is that I can sometimes get away with less intense computation and simulation than I otherwise need to. But then I'm doing stuff with Minecraft, and like I said, it takes a while to simulate a flying machine.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I was going to say that I know that there are, well, for instance, people are able to start streaming gaming, right? Xbox Online, where you're just using high-speed internet to then access a game console somewhere in some
Right.
warehouse. And I recently saw a company startup coming out of Y Combinator where they claim, oh, you can run all of these really processing heavy creative softwares like Adobe and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all the different, Adobes in the browser now. And I guess, the faster the internet becomes, the cheaper the processing is in the cloud, the more access people are going to have to these types of, advanced computers and advanced hardware at a fraction of the cost.
And well, I mean, people definitely do that, and large companies apply evolution at scale too. I mean, one of the earlier things that I think it was OpenAI did, that like before, they had ChatGPT, which drew a lot of attention, but uh, there was this distributed evolution of large neural networks. Like basically, so when deep learning first hit, so deep learning is basically making really large, deep, neural networks. And the breakthrough application for deep neural networks was originally image analysis, right? Um, and when deep learning really took off, evolutionary computation struggled a bit, because there was this whole thriving research community around this algorithm called NEAT. Stands for Neuroevolution of Augmenting Topologies. It's a really cool algorithm. It creates networks with arbitrary topologies, but they're relatively small networks. And we were doing cool things with them, making agents, playing video games, solving other problems. But then when deep learning came along, the scale of those networks was so much bigger than the neat networks. And basically, the more parameters you have in a network, the harder it is to train them, to fine tune them. And so for a while there was some, doubt that evolution could really compete. But at the time, this researcher, Ken Stanley, who was the inventor of NEAT, um, was really eager to show the strengths of evolution. And so he actually was working at Uber AI Lab back when that existed. And he and several of his students and also a collaborator of his named Jeff Clune, who's still a big AI person, Ken is too. And they showed that you could evolve very large neural networks um, to do things that deep learning was doing. And there was also a thing I think at OpenAI where they used a technique called evolution strategies to evolve fairly large neural networks to solve problems with those. But that was pretty much the last example of evolution directly fine tuning every little parameter of a network. Uh, People still use evolution with large neural networks for something called neural architecture search. But often the millions of parameters that a deep learning model has, those often get fine tuned by backpropagation. The standard, GPU powered process that's the normal way of training a neural network is you use backpropagation. Um, and so neural architecture search is saying we'll use evolution to decide what the architecture of the network is, but we're still going to do most of the training with um, the backprop, uh, which once again is a lot of compute. As training with backprop takes a long time, even with super fast GPUs, and so you have to have massive compute to be able to distribute that and train a population of neural networks and get stuff. But people have done it, and my advisor does stuff kind of like that, um, along with various other things.
Are you surprised by how fast things are evolving and developing? Right? Do you feel like it's accelerated? Because from a layperson's perspective, it feels like it's just rocket, like this just crazy exponential thing. Or do you think it's just the natural progression? This would have happened, and what are your thoughts on that?
I think that you have sudden breakthroughs, and then things take a natural course from there. So I think that the initial breakthrough results with deep learning were impressive, and that was a big jump. But that, like, the immediate future after that was some improvements that seemed within reach. But then when LLMs hit, that was a big jump. I definitely agree that that was a surprising jump from everything that was happening before with natural language processing and then LLMs. So that was a big jump. But I think we're sort of in a period where, we're just sort of pushing the envelope more and more with what LLMs do. And we're finding more clever ways to train them, and we're also scaling them. So for OpenAI was really like enamored of just the concept of scaling, just that oh yeah, more compute is going to give you better and better large language model. And they were proven right to some extent. But it's unclear if the problem with scaling is that we're going to use up all the resources. There's obviously all these so much concern about data centers and the resources they consume, the electricity they consume, and with so many people using these LLMs now, the sustainability question is a major concern. And so it's unclear how far we can get with scaling. But even if scaling works, can we actually do that? Are there resources to for everyone to be just using this super complex neural network for honestly, kind of trivial things sometimes? Maybe we can for the most complex stuff, but there's all kinds of different LLMs now because you can run some on your personal machine, and so there's also research now, thankfully, in doing more with less. People are trying to do energy efficient models. They're distilling existing models where you sort of retrain the big model in a smaller model to see if it can do just as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that when I talk to them about AI or the advances that are happening, okay, they bring up the data centers and they bring up the environmental factors, and I don't think it might sound like I'm dismissing them, but what I kind of we always think that what we are experiencing in the present is some novel thing that we've never experienced in history before. But we've had, which in a sense this is, but what I'm talking about is more of technological advancements where there were environmental factors and then we were able to adapt. And just like you were saying, there's an emphasis on making more energy efficient models or ways to use the resources in a different way. Do you think that's accurate, or where do you stand with regards to how concerned we should be from an environmental perspective with this advent of AI?
I mean, I would like more regulation around this, because like left to their own devices, these AI companies are going to pursue profits, and it's kind of crazy how much investment they've received despite not really demonstrating like an ability to make a profit yet. I mean, it's really rampant speculation at this point, and we're definitely. I mean, this is
It
probably
really is. Everybody listening out there, it really is rampant speculation.
yeah, and I mean, we're all getting the benefit of using these systems, and the reason that we can all use them for free, or you can pay for but you can use them for free for limited access, or you can pay very modest prices to get unlimited or semi whatever reasonably limited access. Um, but like that's not what they're worth in terms of their costs.
Yeah,
They
right.
have not recouped their costs yet, and so the speculation is that somehow they'll eventually turn a profit, and maybe they will. But I think that right now, like that's the only current thing that's pushing them to try to be more efficient and to manage resources better and things like that. Like there aren't many um, factors beyond like, well, we got to make this more profitable, therefore we need to be more efficient. Like but at the same time, they want to have better and better models, and that's making them be less efficient because that's seemingly the most obvious way to increase performance. And so, more regulation could slow things down a little bit and force people to reassess priorities. Of course, the counter argument is that, we have to be the best and we have to get there first, or, whatever, China's going to beat us. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
exactly. Yes.
I mean, all of the Chinese models have been open sourced. So, I mean, who cares if they beat us? We're going to get to use the models. But like, I don't know, we deep seek and plan. Like, I
It's
mean,
it's yeah, it's like when Elon's saying, "Well, I mean, someone's got to be the first person, so I might as well just keep going." You know what I mean?
yeah.
But
So, I like I have various concerns. Like things are moving fast, things are being disrupted. Um, people are, or at least to some extent, people are probably losing jobs because of AI. I think that AI is also a handy scapegoat for a lot of lost jobs. I'm not saying that people aren't being displaced, but I think that managers love to blame layoffs they were already going to do on AI.
yeah, right.
Or probably the bigger problem isn't so much that people are being fired, but because of AI, but that the work that people were doing is being devalued because of AI. Because when you say, "Oh yeah, AI can do this, therefore, your job is more precarious, or I can pay you less, or now it's harder for you to compete with your skills," and so that's definitely disrupting the workforce. I mean, we're seeing plenty of evidence of that. Although I don't know, I feel like the economy has a lot of other issues right now that are also. It's all a big intertwined system of chaos.
Yes. It's kind of like the how there's all of this what do they call it? Circular funding that's happening with all of these companies, where you have big corporations that are putting it into the startups, and then competitors are putting into the same startup, and then it's we see this with Microsoft and OpenAI and how that's all going on.
I mean, they can't all win. Like but it is good that there's competition though, because I mean, for a while, I mean, it was just OpenAI, but I mean, I'm glad that we have Anthropic and OpenAI and Google and to some extent others like competing with each other, because if only one of these companies was the source of this technology, then that would definitely change the landscape.
Mhm.
Uh, but
What
who
are
knows
you
in the long
most
run?
what would you say you are most nervous about with regards to, you know, these advancements in technology?
I
Is
mean,
it
it's hard to
job
say like
loss? Is it
what I'm nervous about in terms of what I think is plausible. I mean, I don't pretend to be great at predicting things. Um, like by some of their own admissions, they want to eliminate lots of jobs and replace it with AI. And I think that's kind of short sighted to have that as a goal, because, like, what economy are you proposing we have
Mhm.
if
Right,
people's
right.
jobs are eliminated? Now, of course, the claim is that, oh no, new technologies, they create more jobs because, and maybe they will, I mean, in the long run, but like in the short run, it's causing a lot of problems. And both in the university level, like it's hard to know how to prepare people for the future. I mean, I'm incorporating AI into what I teach. Um, and I was just having a conversation today with a colleague about, what is it like to be a software engineer, um, which is a distinct question from, but related to the question of how you teach computer science. Because a lot of people who are expert software engineers now, they learned the traditional way. So they know how to code. They have all these skills. And so when they interact with a large language model, they have some expertise that really helps them interact with it. They can push back, they can notice flaws, or like wrong assumptions. And so it helps them be successful at interacting with these things. Um, now, but how do you teach people computer science who don't have those skills yet? Like, and of course, college students, especially at least a good percent of them at least are going to take the easiest route possible and just use AI whenever they can. And it's kind of a fool's errand to say you can't use AI ever. And so, like, a lot of us are trying to find ways to make sure students are learning things despite AI. And so, fall back on, you know, written timed exams. I mean, that's, you know, as long as they don't have access to a phone or, cheating in some other weird way, that should, in theory, assess what they really know. But even if you solve that problem, there's a question of like, what do they really need to know? Like, do they need to be able to program in the old-fashioned way in order to use LLMs intelligently, or are there skills that they can just bypass completely now? The way that, arguably a lot of people don't know how to read a map anymore because of GPS.
Yes.
Um,
Yes, this is something I've thought about quite a bit because I've done a lot of schooling, and I remember being in dental school and looking at different PowerPoints over the years of the same lecture, and they would add, 3 to 5 slides per every year because of new research came out, and they wouldn't reduce any. And because I went to dental school later as as an older adult, I was kind of saying like, okay, do you really have to know this? How applied is this going to be to my clinical day to day? And now with AI coming into education, it's like a whole nother can of worms where you have this massive amount of skills required to be able to interface with them effectively. You still have to have a foundation, as you mentioned, because you have to know how to ask, what to ask, and how to identify what's real and what's not real. How are you, as an educator, how are you approaching implementing this in your
I
class?
rely
Is this
heavily on
semester by
exams.
semester?
Yeah, no, I mean, the big shift I've made is to test people a lot, and to make. And this is not just like an AI thing. It's also tied with some concepts, like equity or equitable grading or equity based grading, like the idea that like homework is practice and the exam is an assessment. And so even before AI, there was this idea that, oh yeah, homework, do it, redo it, try it as much as you like. The homework is whatever. Um, like, don't even give a grade to the homework. Like, I give a small grade to the homework, and I try to make the homework auto grade whenever I can. But the reason I auto grade it is so that they can try it over and over again. And so if they get it wrong, they can try again. Because if they try once and get it wrong, they might just kind of be like, okay, well, whatever, I don't know it. Like, they just give up on it, and they take the exam. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't know that. I'm like, well, okay. um, so you want to give people a chance to practice a lot, before they then take the exam, which is the assessment of what they actually know. But even there, like, um, I give people some opportunity to redo exams just because, like, okay, well, and when I say redo, I don't mean the exact same exam. I mean like a different exam of the same content. Because just because you didn't know something once doesn't mean that you never know it. Ultimately, I care what you learn, not when you learn it, for the
I
most
love that
part.
you're such a compassionate educator, Jacob.
I mean, I have some
I do
flexibility in that I teach
appreciate
a
that.
fairly small, um, I have reasonably small classes and I can pull it off. But yeah, no, the degree to which you can do this is limited by the environment you're in.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But I mean, I have colleagues who are even more compassionate than I am, especially some on the math side who do this mastery-based grading thing where they let people redo things over and over and over again to a degree that I don't allow. But like I'm trying to find a reasonable balance here. But and also interestingly, AI helps a little bit with me. Not grading. I don't grade with AI. I don't like that. But it helps me generate a variety of different exams of the same content. So I have tools at my disposal, either having AI generate these things, or more often, what I do is I actually have AI help me create programs, which then like create randomized problem instances along with corresponding answer keys, because that way I have a deterministic process. I trust a more deterministic process that I can also look at the code and oversee myself than just having the AI do it.
I've thought about this with when thinking of the hard science classes, because I had to go back to school to get all of those, and thinking the amount of questions that I could have AI make to just run, and just keep banging against it. Yeah, that's a huge advantage. One of the things that I've been thinking about and I'd like to talk about AI in creative space, because I had a whole project last year that encompassed that. But during that project, what I realized was how little narrative and story there was behind creative deliverables that people were making, because they were just like, let's make 1,000 cat videos and let's see what that looks like. But there wasn't really any story behind it. And it led me to this whole idea that's becoming, more present, and people are talking about, is cognitive decline or cognitive atrophy, due to AI being so accessible and answering and not having to think as much when I make this email or write this article. Is this something that you're seeing in your students? Is this something that you're concerned about in how they're learning?
I mean, my this is like an over the top take on it, but like I sometimes jokingly worry that like we're the last generation who's going to know how to do anything. Um, but that's I don't really believe that. I just sort of can see how it would be very easy to slip into that trap. I think the reality is that there are always people who take the easy way out, and there are always people who care about learning things. And it's just a question of what the lowest common denominator is and how that affects society. But people will still learn. I mean, there's plenty of people who um, people just get fascinated by weird things and go down rabbit holes because that's part of what being a human is, like having curiosity. Um, and some people are less curious than others. And of course, we're surrounded by distractions that blunt our curiosity, whether it's, TikTok or, um, I mean, whatever else. I mean, video games. I mean, someone who loves video games, I won't deny that they're distracting. Um, um, but there's still um, plenty of opportunity to learn and grow, um, and plenty of people who just have that innately that drive that I, think we're somehow going to be in good enough shape overall. But I can definitely see why I can see why there's skepticism among like companies for like the average college graduate, for example, because college has become the bare minimum expected thing. But you're seeing these articles now about companies doubting the value of a college education, um, and that does mean that we have to change the nature of what we're doing. And I mean, I'd like to think that where I'm at, which is like a small private liberal arts institution, Southwestern University, that because the education here is a bit more holistic, that maybe we have a better chance of helping people survive in this very shaky employment landscape where AI is overturning things.
I just want to highlight that because I think it's so true. I think liberal arts universities too are going to have an edge, and it's just from the amount of students that you have, the amount of the human element to the subjects that you can do, be it, even in physics or biology, hard sciences, because you have a smaller group of people, you can do just like the rocket project that you all did. And, but larger institutions, I went to the University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, 40, 50,000 students. You went to UT, you can't do that at scale, right? You have the 400-person lecture hall, and LLMs are going to be able to solve all of those calculus problems that you do, right? But are they going to be able to be in the world and intake all these variables about situation and environment and, the human, that's the relationship that's in front of you? These are all, outside of what computers can do right at this moment.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that it's just having like natural curiosity and wanting to make connections between things, because I always like there's a distinction between people who want a college degree and who want a college education. Um, like, and people who like want to learn things and who want to know an answer. Do you want to understand this, or do you just want me to tell you the answer? And it's like a struggle because um, I will admit that not every single thing I teach in every class is something that a student might find inherently interesting. The common pushback is, why do I need to know this? And ultimately, like, a student doesn't know why they need to know certain things, or they don't know now how things are going to be relevant later in their lives. And so, um, like, there's lots of specific instances where I can explain why a specific skill might be surprisingly useful, even if you don't understand why right now. But I think the broader perspective on education is just, you got to be willing to learn things, because you don't know when this is going to be useful. Like, there's plenty of things I teach that I'll admit I specifically don't use very often. But it doesn't mean that at least some students I've taught it to haven't gone off to use it in their professional careers. But everyone's different. People are going to go in different directions. Some people will never use it. Some people will use it a lot. And I have to expose people to like a broad range of information. I mean, I'm a resource that helps expose people to things that they might want to learn about, and hopefully everyone has a strong enough base, a foundation, that they can be able to go deeper into the things they care about the most. But you know, it's a competition with their time. Yeah, well, it's a competition with their time, their level of investment, and now with AI, the easy retort is, well, if I need to know that, I'll ask an AI agent. So,
Right. Well, there's so much learning that happens in the journey from point A to point B, where you might not believe you're going to be getting something useful at a point B, but it's that journey, that process that you're learning. And just like you said, it's the idea of learning how to learn. It takes
yeah.
time. It's like learning to love reading. It takes time, and you can only get there by the process, the
Well,
slow
and
process.
a lot of
Um,
like projects that I give, and this was so I have to like reassess how this works in the age of AI now. But like, I would have these projects that were like really hard, and students would sometimes push back and say, like, how am I supposed to figure that out? It's just like, well, if the instructions just told you everything you needed to know to figure this out, you wouldn't learn anything. The point is that I tell you where you need to go, and you struggle with it to figure out how to get there. And that struggle is how you learn things. And with AI available is an easy way out, it's unclear, like, if that works anymore. Like, I can have these exams that assess what they learned, and but even the exams, they're kind of more, it's more clearly prescribed what they have to be able to do on them. But like the actual experience of like not knowing how to do something, struggling with it, being like willing to struggle with it and not immediately go to an AI agent. I mean, like, e- even before AI, I would have students who they would eventually pass my classes, but they might ask for so much help from me or from tutors or from fellow students. Like, technically, they were functioning like within the bounds of academic integrity, but ultimately, they were not personally developing the ability to struggle with challenges. And AI just makes it so easy to bypass this struggle, which is why like I said, I jokingly worry that we're the last generation who will know how to do anything.
yeah, no, absolutely. This has been a super, super fun conversation. Um, yeah, I was almost thinking as you were talking, it's this idea of thinking of assignments and this is not going to be the right phrase, but almost like reverse prompting. So writing an assignment in a way to where how to prompt it would not be clear, right? And
Right. So you want to give
that's
people more leeway to discover things, and like try not to like make the path too easy by warning them about the challenges in advance. Just go kind of, oh yeah, that's something that you know you have to figure out on your own when it comes up. But these AI, that's the kind of thing that AI agents do get better and better at. I mean, there was something I was designing last summer where I specifically intended the students to use AI, and when I like planned it out early in the summer, I thought, okay, this seems reasonable. And then by the time the students were doing it like mid fall the following semester, I felt like the AI agents were just so much better by then that I was like, wow, they're having a way easier time than I thought they were supposed to, but from the AI. And it's like, I don't know if this is exactly the experience I wanted. I have to
no,
reevaluate.
that's so interesting. One of the things, and I know I totally agree with you on everything you're saying with regards to the type of person, the type of people that are going to want to learn. But the struggle that I have, or the fear that I have, is in the age of TikTok and streaming and doom scrolling and all these things, is that you have, you know, we are designed to expend the least amount of energy possible, typically, in order to, to survive. Now we have everything at our fingertips, so we don't have to expend that much energy. And taking time to learn expends energy. And why should I do that when I can just have the best video game or the best TV show possible? Because the more the technology moves forward, the more it's going to be hooking us. Like you said, the incentives for these companies is to keep us wanting more.
Yeah. I mean, this is, this kind of a personal take, I guess. I mean, there's obviously, I am a parent, and there's, talk in the news right now about, regulating social media and other things like that. Um, and I mean, I let my kids have access to screens, uh, but I, try to police it to some extent. And I think that, you know, part of in order to be able to learn, you have to be willing to be comfortable with failure. You have to be willing to struggle with not knowing things and accept that, and then kind of figure out, okay, what comes next. And when it comes to like our attention spans, the reason people like love to scroll on TikTok or just play, whatever mindless video games is that they're not comfortable with being bored. Um, and I think it's kind of a related issue, is that you just have to be willing to sit in your lack of comfort, let your mind wander, and like see what you're going to do in that lack of stimulation. Or rather, without the external stimulation, it allows your brain to like, maybe stimulate itself, find something, whether it's a solution to a problem you're struggling with or something fascinating that you can think about in the absence of external stimulation. Um, and I guess the worry is that some kids have had that ability destroyed at an early age, um, and then they end up coming to college, and I have to work with what I have. Um, but I mean, like I say, I'm not. There's a wide spectrum. I mean, there are people who come in who they're amazing, and you teach them, and maybe you sometimes like get credit or recognition for being a good teacher to them, but really they were just going to succeed at whatever they did. Uh, and then there's people who you initially think maybe like they're just having such a hard time, but they somehow rise to the challenge through your effort as an instructor, and that's rewarding as well. Um, so I mean, people can succeed, and if we, preach these habits of mind and try to exemplify them, maybe people will kind of latch on. I mean, I think people know that mindlessly scrolling on TikTok for hours is bad for them, and it's just a question of at what point that penetrates. And causes them to change their behavior. The same way that people know that eating junk food all the time is bad for them, and some people kind of never really escape that, but other people change their habits and be healthy, And so people do things all the time that they don't uh, necessarily want to do, like exercise or put hard work into a math problem or computer science assignment or whatever. And then if you do it enough, it becomes a habit, or you end up seeing the rewarding side of it. You end up appreciating it, and I don't know. You kind of like reprogram your brain, I guess, to uh,
No,
function
absolutely.
despite normal pressures of the instant gratification.
100%. And we've started to see there does seem to be a shift towards people trying to do more tangible things that are part of the human experience, like going outside, gardening,
Mhm.
using your hands. Um, Especially once robotics start coming in here. I've followed what's happening in the robotic space pretty closely for the past year, and there's going to be a time where we're going to have a robot in our home, and they're going to be doing our laundry and folding and doing all these tactile things.
Well,
Um,
and if we actually do have I mean, losing our jobs to AI and robots wouldn't be a bad thing if the distribution of resources was such that people could enjoy the leisure that grants them. If a robot or an AI agent takes your job and then now you're just destitute, that's a dystopia. But if if robots and AI do all the work and that frees up humanity to do stuff that's more fulfilling, that would be a utopia. It's just that it seems like we're more on the dystopia side, but it doesn't mean that AI is necessarily a bad thing. It means that we have to have other policies in place that give us the society we want to have despite AI, so we can get hopefully the good aspect of it and avoid some of the bad stuff. But I mean, I feel like at least in the short term, it's going to be rocky. Whether it shakes out the right way in the long term, that it requires effort on people's part.
100. I want to turn the wheels here for a moment. That just came to my mind, but I was excited to talk to you about it. Everything that's happening in the creative space right now. So recently, Google came out with a model, and I forgot what the name of the model was, but it was basically a natural language to open world video game. Are you
Okay.
familiar with this?
Not that specific one, but I mentioned Jeff Kloon earlier. He was one of those early people doing. I mean, people have um tried to generate playable games from just viewing data and stuff like that. So yeah, just
Yeah. So are we approaching a time where we're going to be almost having custom, like you go to Disney Plus and you put in your favorite characters and then it makes a movie for you. I know
well,
Disney had actually partnered with Sora by OpenAI before they closed it down. They were going to
yeah.
do something to this effect. Or the video game industry, where your video game is more than just adapting with the choices that you have, which we see in some of the RPGs now, but it's quite literally a different game according to your tastes. Do you think that this is something that's going to come up, or?
I mean, people are going to try it. It's an interesting question because I mean, there's obviously a lot of discourse around AI slop, where and I remember um the other day looking at something on YouTube where it's like, oh, that looks like a cool thumbnail. And then I watched it, it's like, oh wait, this isn't actually the thing I thought it was. It's some AI generated thing. And that just made me care about it less. I don't know if that's an example of the uncanny valley or not. Like basically, if the AI is so good that you can't tell it's AI, then maybe that is this amazing thing where everyone experiences the ultimate in entertainment. But in a world where we have stuff made by humans and stuff made by AI, and the AI is often a little bit off, it kind of makes you want to disengage. I mean, with it to some extent. Um, although there's also a lot of entertainment that comes out of the jankiness of AI as well. And so
Mhm. Oh yeah, sure.
and so I think it's more a matter of curation. Because there are YouTube channels out there where they specifically focus on doing some kind of weird parody thing, um Harry Potter, but it's weightlifting. And so he's the boy who lifts or whatever. And it's and there's a whole narrative around
Yes.
this. It's hilarious.
Yes.
Um,
There's one with it's they're massaging someone. Have you seen
yeah.
this? Yeah,
Well, I
they're
mean,
massaging them. They throw them through the window. Like,
but the idea is that it's clearly a human with a vision for how to push the AI in a certain direction in a way that makes it entertaining. Um, and it isn't just AI make a funny Harry Potter parody for me, or with a minimal prompt, what you get is some sort of statistical distribution, right? And the odds of that being engaging seem very slim to me. Like the real entertainment comes from something that is like well thought out, like has a lot of design, adaptive. Now, the way that AI engages with people, so like you mentioned this open world thing, maybe I could imagine a future where you're basically getting like a holodeck and like and the AI knows everything about you and everything you say feeds into it. And it's paying attention to like your heart rate and everything. And so I guess with enough feedback and enough measurement of what you're experiencing and what you're saying you want to experience and like this knowledge of how you've reacted to the past, maybe you can get this nice interactive experience. But to some extent, having humans experience things that other humans have created is just a unique form of joy that I think is hard for AI to really duplicate. I mean, it can surprise us, do cool things, but when it comes down to like, show me a funny thing, like if you ask for a certain prompt, it's probably not going to be exactly what you imagine. Maybe that's already a letdown. Maybe sometimes it surprises you. I mentioned AI surprises me all the time. Now that was in the context of evolutionary computation, but it can also be a letdown as well. And so, like, I don't know.
No,
I
I'm
want to be
with you.
both optimistic and skeptical. I'm not
Yeah,
getting a
yeah.
clear answer here.
I'm with you. There's definitely going to be services that and products that are human made that people are going to want to be human made, and it's just like having an oil and canvas painting. Most people don't have that, right? They have a print of it, but there are people out there who want the oil and canvas, or they want the little inconsistencies of human made work where they're just tiny flaws, like a sculpture as an example.
Or like a musician, like
Mhm.
there are people who like because they know something about the personal biography of the artist, that makes them engage with the music more. Where if that same song were made by AI, it it by definition can't engage a person in that way.
100%.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and I know we're at our 15-minute mark, Jacob, so I can let you go. I can let you go soon here. But you mentioned that you mentioned all these good things. That's your fault that you're still on. No. Is the LLMs you're talking about when you give a generic prompt, it's giving you some type of statistical, the equivalent, statistical answer, right? This is
The
this is what
stochastic parrot answer, right?
yes.
For that term, yeah.
Is that how it's always happening? So one of my good friends, I was just talking to him not too long ago. He's a professor of graphic design at a university, and they had a working group of computer science professors teaching them about LLMs and how they work and things like that. And what his kind of argument was, and I might be butchering it, but it's basically the LLM is making a statistical recommendation, like this is the highest probability answer for this, and then it's the highest probability answer for this, and then it's the highest probability answer for this. And there's not actually any thinking or reasoning or cognition at all. It's just a big statistical thing. Is that the way that it is and the way to think about it?
So the way that LLMs work is they're computing a probability distribution over all possible tokens, words, or parts of words that come after everything that's preceded it. And there's a parameter that indicates how likely you are to pick the highest probability thing versus something else that's maybe less probable. It's called the temperature parameter. And so you can definitely use a setting that is just 100% most likely thing nonstop. And although even if you have that temperature parameter tuned to a different setting, um, it's still technically deterministic in that things in a computer are not really random; they're pseudo-random. But you will get less probable things coming out of it. But yeah, I mean, at every step of the way, you have all the tokens, and you predict over all the possible tokens, and you predict the next one, and so on. Now, that's what the LLM does at its core, but there is a lot of infrastructure being built on top of them to make them more agentic, to give them the ability to supposedly do reasoning, which is really just them talking to themselves a lot. They like produce a bunch of tokens behind the scenes, some of which is sometimes visible, and then they feed their reasoning process into their own context before they then pluck the answer out of their thinking in their brain, support, which, whether that qualifies as thinking, I mean, that's debatable. But it definitely, it can improve performance sometimes. It can improve human perception of performance in some cases. And then you can also give LLMs the ability to use tools where, like, instead of just printing out a token, they have the ability to invoke some program that will provide a deterministic response that's like more reliable. Because, like, it's interesting because LLMs can do arithmetic to some extent, but they're not really reasoning through the math the way that we are. I mean, like, a calculator can do arithmetic better than an LLM, even though an LLM can do certain types of calculations. But the really smart thing to do is just to give the LLM ability to then call a calculator program whenever it needs to do math, or arithmetic at least. And so, like, I think that's where a lot of the future usefulness of these is just leveraging more and more tool use. And I mean, to some extent, that's what being a successful human is that, like, I don't need to know certain answers if I know I can look it up in a book or online. And of course, the claim now is I don't need to know how to do certain things if I can ask an LLM to do it. But even the LLM doesn't know how to do certain things because sometimes the LLM looks up some program to know how to do it. And so, whether it's humans or LLMs, we're all farming out our reasoning
Or thinking
capabilities to
power.
some other process.
That's funny.
And as
No,
long as we
totally.
don't end up in some weird dystopia where LLMs require enslaved humans to, like, provide answers to problems, I think we'll be okay.
Excellent. So last and final question, then I can let you go, is what are you most looking forward to when you see all this technological innovation happening around you? What gets you super excited about the future?
I mean, as a researcher in AI, it's just more fun things to play with. Um, I don't know if I'm, like, it's weird. I use it all the time and I'm happy to, like, take advantage of it. I don't know if that means I'm optimistic about it. Like, I'm not, like, looking for the next big thing. Um, I think because really, sometimes it just reminds me, like, oh yeah, I need to put some more effort into learning how to do this new thing now.
Yeah.
Or like, or I can't do research in that anymore because I got to do this research in this LLM thing if I want to stay relevant. So, I guess I apologize for being a bit of a downer there. It's like more homework for me when more AI stuff comes out.
True. Yes.
But yeah, I mean, but it would be nice. Just to have more AI come out that actually makes um, life better for society as a whole, as opposed to this uncertain situation we're in right now where it's tenuous. Like, the benefits seem undeniable, but the hype also seems excessive, and the potential concerns are relevant. So, I'm smiling as I say that. I'm not ending on an upbeat note, but I mean, I'm
No,
hopeful.
quite all right.
Even if there's not something specific I'm really excited about. I'm just
Yeah.
hoping we end up in a good place.
Yeah, me too. Awesome. Jacob, this has been such a super fun conversation. There's so many more questions that we could be going into, like, is it living? And all different types of organisms. So maybe we'll have to have a continuation episode here in the future. But just want to thank you again for coming on. If anybody wants to find out where what you're up to, your research, where can they find you?
If you just search Jacob Schrum, that's SCHRUM, I'm hopefully the first result. I mean, I have a website. I'm associated with Southwestern University, and so that's how you can know it's the right one. And I don't think there's too many other Jacob Shrums. And yeah, I mean, I'm doing stuff with video games and AI, but I'm also at a small private liberal arts teaching university, and so a lot of my effort is in teaching students computer science, but also how to deal with these things. But hopefully to be well-rounded, individuals as well, while also doing some research in silly little things like games and AI.
Absolutely. Love it. All right, sir. Well, thank you very much. And we'll look forward to chatting again.
All right. Thanks.